Welcome back to Red vs. Blue episode summaries. Today we're doing episode 10, A Shadow of His Former Self. Now back at Blue Base, Tucker was attempting to reach Blue Command, identifying Blue Base as Blood Gulch Outpost Alpha with the radio, while Caboose cleaned off the rest of the black shit from his armor, restoring the aqua color. Tucker eventually reaches Vic, a brown-haired member of Blue Command, not in a suit of armor, but only a gray and yellow jacket, and excitedly greets him, explaining his team needs help. Vic responds with "Roger that," asking what Tucker's request was. Tucker explained he didn't know standard military talk, and simply that they were in a pretty fucked up situation and needed men. Vic, taking that as a sexual comment, questioned how long they've been down in the gulch. Tucker quickly corrects Vic's assumptions, clarifying that they needed reinforcements. Vic asks about the tank, assuming that should be enough to help, but when Tucker explains that it got blown up, Vic can only muster the response, "Wow, sucks to be you." Tucker assures him that they know. Vic says that he can send Blue reinforcements, but it would take 16 days. Tucker, even after mistakenly assuming 16 days is less than 2 weeks, is still unhappy with the wait. Vic explains the other option of hiring a freelancer who could arrive in a few hours, which sounds like a much better option to Caboose and Tucker, who accept the option. Vic replies that they will contact a freelancer named Texas, assuring they will be there as soon as possible, before hanging up after Tucker tells him to make sure Texas is able to fix the tank at least. Caboose then asks what a freelancer is, with Tucker explaining they were independent contractors who would fight for whoever paid the most. When Caboose compared them to a mercenary, Tucker jokingly corrects that a more apt comparison is like your mom when the rent is due. Caboose actually compliments this joke, which surprises Tucker, probably due to Church always criticizing his jokes, especially for being too serious. Suddenly, a white ghost appears, creepily calling Tucker's name. Tucker freaks out, questioning who the hell it is, with the ghost claiming he's the ghost of Church, who came back with a warning. Caboose dumbly claims that the ghost can't be Church, since Church is blue, but both Caboose and Tucker are convinced of it being Church, when the ghost angrily responds, "Rookie, have you ever seen a blue ghost?" in the same way as him. Having that cleared up, Church angrily complains that he has to start his warning over to seem threatening again, as he creepily calls Tucker's name once more. The stereotypical cliché voice only annoys the two blue soldiers now, and they ask Church to stop, a request which he begrudgingly accepts, now talking normally. Church explains that he came back to warn them about Tex, leading Caboose to eagerly ask what the warning is. Church gets even more pissed, demanding Caboose to be quiet so he can tell them, also taking the time to lecture Caboose and Tucker on how hard and how much concentration it takes to come back from the dead, so he'd like to get a word in when he can, and how Caboose has no place to complain when he's the one who killed him. Caboose just shamefully apologizes, quietly, allowing Church to start explaining his warning. Before he can start, though, Caboose asks for clarification that Church is going to talk about the warning now, interrupting Church again. Church swears to haunt Caboose, who Tucker says is even annoying him at this point. Church finally begins his story by asking if he's ever told Tucker about his time on Sidewinder before being stationed at Blood Gulch, sure that he must have. Tucker denies this, surprised. Caboose, also confused, asks if Sidewinder is the ice planet, which Church confirms. Caboose asks Church what his time was like, with Church annoyed, simply replying that it was fucking cold. When Caboose asks for more detail, Church claims it being really cold is all you notice on a planet made entirely out of ice. Tucker, sick of the constant arguing, demands Caboose to shut up and finally let Church talk. In a flashback sequence, Church explains that one day on Sidewinder, it was a normal day. He was with his partner Jimmy, who was a really nice young guy with a Texan accent everyone liked, and the rest of the blue soldiers were bitching about the cold and how they wanted some interesting things to happen. This leads Tucker to ask Church if he thought he was a good guy, wanting his approval, with Church simply telling Tucker not to get jealous. Church continues his story, explaining how Jimmy was telling him about his girlfriend back home and how he was going to marry her when he got back, when suddenly Tex showed up and started killing everyone, starting with a guy named Private Mickey, who literally started screaming bloody murder. Everyone else was dead practically an instant later, with poor Jimmy being the last victim, with Tex beating him to death with his own skull after pulling it out of his head. Tucker comments how that doesn't seem physically possible, with Church clarifying that was exactly what Jimmy kept screaming during the process, before fully dying and saying, "Hurt, bleh." Church ends off by clarifying the bottom line that the freelancers are bad news, especially Texas, and he shouldn't get involved. Caboose then questions why Texas spared Church if he's such a badass, with Church replying he was unsure, claiming he could have been killed at any point, suggesting that it may be because him and Texas ran into each other once before, citing Tex as the reason why him and his girlfriend he mentioned never got married. Church then began to fade, so he ended off with saying that he doesn't know when he'll be back, demanding once more that Tex do nothing. No fighting, no scouting, nothing, repeating himself to make sure Tucker understood, as he fully disappeared. Tucker surmises that Church and Tex must have been after the same girl, leading Caboose to proudly say he was right about Church's girlfriend being his slut, right as Texas showed up.